Hi, David Hyner here with another superb Top Achiever interview. Today I'm with a guy who actually I'm really proud and pleased to call a friend. I haven't known him for more than a couple of years, but in that time he's not only impressed me as a person, but also impressed me professionally. The reason he's impressed me professionally is because he doesn't shout about what he does. It's other people who have shouted about him. So I'm really, really keen to try and get inside his head and try and find out a little bit of gold that can help all of us be more effective on the subject of digital marketing. Today, I'm with Mark Preston. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
How you doing today?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, mate, nearly as good as you.
That's all right.
Mark's from Lancashire in the sort of the northwest area of Great Britain in England, and Brummies, we joke about Lancastrians because you could probably see on the wall behind Mark, he's got a map, and that's because he needs to keep reminding himself where he's from. Now, Mark has written a best-selling book that we'll ask him to tell us about later. And he's worked for himself, and he's also worked for companies. And I came to know Mark through an event I spoke at on the main stage at their national convention called the Hakim Group, which is an optical sort of franchise licensing organisation. And everyone there is just really nice and really professional, really, really cool company to work with. And everyone was extolling the virtues of how they are and still are massively growing this business. And one of the main key thrusts for that was the digital marketing. So I was keen to have a chat with Mark, and over the last couple of years we've become friends, but he's only ever impressed me. So Mark, first of all, for me, because I'm from Birmingham and I like things simple, and for anyone else who doesn't actually quite get it, and by this I mean the type of people who would go, oh yes, right, but actually inside go, what does that mean? What is head of digital?
Well, my role at Hakim Group as head of digital is like David said, we are a group of independent opticians based all around the UK. And my job is to simply make sure people walk through the front door.
So in my world, it's getting bums on seats.
Exactly.
Right. So the main target is aimed at the general public.
It is. Well, each individual practice has a different audience base. So some practices might be in a more affluent area.
Yeah.
The target is people who like quirky things, who like to wear not your ordinary frames, where other practices are aimed at, maybe the more less affluent places around the UK. So obviously, depending on the location, depends on the target audience. And it's all about driving the right people for that location into the right practice.
Ah, right. Okay. So it's very much a tailored approach, marketing geographically and against different demographics. And so what would that involve, other than the obvious to me, the website? What else would that involve in terms of digital marketing then?
Well, first of all, you need to understand who your customers are, who your patients are. That is the key thing. If you don't understand who your patients are, then it's going to fall to bits, because not everybody is your customer. Not everybody is your patient. You need to understand who they are, who you want to target. Then you need to understand, well, what problems do you solve they have online? And it's all about using social media channels, using organic SEO on Google, using paid advertising to basically make them understand that you can solve their problem.
Right.
Then it's driving people to the website. Then the website needs to build trust. They need to trust you that you will solve their problem. Then it's about how, once you've gained that trust, how can they get in touch with you to come and speak to you? And it's a lot of time, it's all about starting a conversation.
Okay, now what I'm loving about this is that it all sounds very, very simple. A lot of people, shall we say, in your industry, potential competitors of yours, they love to make things sound very complicated, technical, or as I call it in Birmingham, fluff. Yes. And a lot of them contradict each other in their advice. But what you're saying, and bearing in mind, for people watching this and listening to this, what Mark has achieved with his team at Hakim is little short of remarkable. I mean, they've grown exponentially in the last few years since I've known them and we're working with them. And they swept the board at the Sunday Times Best Business Awards. And yeah, they're just on a complete and utter, I won't say even a roll, I'd say an avalanche, right? And they're storming it. So I'm going to listen to what Mark's saying because I trust him, because it's working for him. So let's get this right. It is as simple as identify who your customer is, where they are, identify and find out what are their problems, drive them to the website, build trust, and then engage them. Is that it?
Well, that's the main bulk of it. Basically, that is what I call the foundations. If you don't have the foundations right, you're going to waste a lot of time, money, and energy targeting the wrong people.
I know that one from a previous business. Well, not a previous one, another business I'm working in the publishing. You know, I spend a fortune on Facebook adverts, and I have to put my hands up and be honest and say sometimes by chance we get it right, and sometimes it builds nothing. So I'm very, very keen to hear how you get it right.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of trial and error testing involved.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't say there's anybody on this earth that nobody's got a magic wand they wave and suddenly, hey presto. So there is an element of testing things. Now, when you understand your audience, you need to know, well, where are they? Is my audience on Twitter? Is it on Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Okay, well, we know who the audience are. What type of people are they? Okay, well, let's set up a small campaign. So instead of pushing thousands of pounds at a campaign, let's just push £50 at it to start with. Let's test it and learn from it. And each time we do a test, it's about looking at the impact. How did people react? And on social media, it's better to test marketing with a video. So you run a campaign with a video, then you can retarget everybody that's watched maybe 10 seconds of that video. Because on social media, if you've watched 10 seconds of something, then you're engaged. And then it's the second interaction then that the real nuts and bolts of the campaigns have. Because the first one is to build your audience. Then once you're building your audience, you've got the audience nailed down, then you can approach them with the key messages. Or as
my friend Peter Thompson says, that you give them salt and then give them a drink.
Yes, brilliant. That, love that.
You salt your marketing, and then when they're thirsty, give them the drink. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, that 10-second rule, I love that, and I've not heard of that about video marketing before. So, is that something that Mark's discovered, or is that quite an industry generic thing?
No, it's quite a generic thing. I mean, retargeting's been around for a long time. It's just that a lot of people don't understand. They'll just put all the budget onto a campaign, then find out, well, it hasn't really worked. You don't throw everything at something, then find out it doesn't work. Let's throw a little bit at something, test it, then we can find out the good and not so good about it. then that's what we do with marketing. Each time we are testing and tweaking things. So like at the Hakim Group, we've got over, 100 plus different individual brands. And it'd be foolish for me to suddenly run a blanket national campaign for every single individual brand with a top level budget. Well, we don't do that. Let's just trial it, maybe with 5 practices and with the messages and test it and see what's working. And a lot of the time, it's businesses do not test. They'll think, oh, well, everyone, we just throw it out, throw the same message at everyone and hope something sticks. And that's not the right way, because your money and your time and investment will suddenly vanish.
So with a bigger company or a medium-sized company, they've got the resource, the manpower and the budget to throw at that. How about, people like myself who, employ between 0 and 5 people, the micro businesses out there, of which there are tens of thousands in the UK alone, and, let alone globally. And, someone might have a couple of £100 up to a couple of £1,000. So let's say put a ceiling on £5,000 maybe for their marketing. And they go, I don't know how to test and measure properly. I'll be honest, it scares me a bit. So there you go, Facebook, or there you go, LinkedIn, or there you go, YouTube. Have more money and do something with it. And as you say, frequently that'll fall over, do nothing. So what would your advice be to people like us, small and micro business owners, who are a little bit afraid of all the work involved of test and measure? And be prepared. Feel free to be brutal if you have to be, Mark. Right? I'm giving you. Don't hold back. Give it us both barrels. What's the top advice for us?
Well, to start with, actually, as a small business, you're better placed than anybody, any big brand, to do this. Why? Because there's nobody that understands your customers better than you.
Good point.
My first, honestly, is I've spoke to a lot of small business owners over the years, and what seems irrelevant to you is a key component to the marketing campaign. So say, for instance, all the questions you get asked on a daily basis are just common for you. You don't think about it because it's just natural. Things are natural. But all these questions that you get asked, well, that is social media. That is your marketing. Because why are they asking them these questions when they contact you? Because you haven't answered them during their journey. Right? So as a small business owner, you can start with making a list of what are the 10 top most asked questions. What are the 10 top problems you solve? And once you get that nailed down, and what type of people are asking these? And literally, it's not about, a lot of time, it's not about throwing money. Because at the Hakim Group, we compete against major national brands on a minuscule budget compared to theirs. But we still make a difference. It's understanding your audience. And as a small business owner, £5,000 can go an awful long way if you understand.
So if I've understood, because it's always good to ask that,
yes.
If I've understood, what you're suggesting is that we should list the biggest questions and challenges that they give us, and also create, if I've heard you correctly, an avatar, for want of better words, a profile of exactly who the target market is. Yes.
In a nutshell, yes. Is the better you get that nailed down, without testing, you're never going to get it perfect, but the better you can nail that down originally, the less marketing budget you're going to waste. And the less, because it's better to target 10 people that 100% need your service now than it is to target your message to 1,000 people. And some of them might listen to you, some of them might not want it.
True. Yeah.
You know, so
okay.
It really is about that, and small business owners don't get it because it's just day-to-day life for them, and without asking the simple questions, I call it a light bulb moment. And I'll say to you, David, write down the top 10 questions you get asked on a daily basis.
Right.
Type of people, and suddenly, once you've written all these down on a pen and paper, because even though I work in digital, I'm old school and I still like pen and paper. And when you see it in front of yourself, I think, oh, wow. And it's a light bulb moment. They didn't realise what they had until they write it down.
I could see that happening because a colleague of mine once pinned me, I mean, really pinned me, just by saying, what's your reputation? And my ego wanted to say, oh, well, it's my research, it's my goal setting model, it's my speaking awards, it's my Amazon #1 books and my BBC radio show I did. And he said, is that true? I went, well, yeah. He went, is it? I think so. He said, so you don't know? I went, well, it probably is. And he went, so you're going to blow your marketing budget on probably. So he said, go and ask, 20, 30 customers, what is your reputation and how do you make them feel? What is it you give them? And the stuff that came back, we picked out all the words that were common in their answers, and it changed our marketing forever. Changed our marketing forever, because when people said, what is it you do? Instead of going off, blah, 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 we just said exactly what our customers said. We give them, and people started going, oh yeah, we want that. Went, oh. So
yeah.
I still wince at the thought of having to do all that work, or as you call it, the foundation. But actually, 100% agree with you, Mark. 100% agree with you.
I mean, the biggest problem is perception. Never, perception and assumption. Never assume anything and never presume anything. Do your research, ask your customers, because there'll be things in their replies that are golden nugget you wouldn't even thought about. It's like you say, I've written a book, I've done this, I've done that and done that. And every time I've asked my audience about myself, it's something completely different than what's in my own head.
Yeah, I get that.
It's because, it's like, well, it's that assumption and perception, and people have to connect with you on that emotional level.
Very true. Very true.
That's what it's about. It's about how do you get your audience to connect with you on the emotional level. Now, if you don't understand what it was that allowed your existing customers to connect with you on that emotional level, you're never going to push your marketing forward.
True. Very true. Now, so let's take, hypothetically, we'll take for granted then that we've got our ideal avatar, we've got the list of questions, we've identified who our customer is, making notes. we've identified the customer, we've identified their problems. How can we drive them to the website then?
One is making sure your website ranks for the right things. So basically understanding what it is your customers search is you can use free tools like Answer the Public. Basically, you can put, say, professional speaker in, and every question that gets asked online will come up in a little diagram relating to professional speaker. Then that's one step further. You understand what people's asking for. Then it's about on your website is, do you have a page relating to all them different scenarios, all them different problems that people have?
Right. Okay. So I'm assuming then that the language on the pages have to match the questions that they're asking, and right. Okay.
Yes. So literally what you've got, the power of a website, if a website is done properly, you should never have to employ a salesperson.
Now that, my friend, is a big statement.
It is. But if you have to sell yourself or your product by the time they contact you, then the information on your website isn't doing its job.
That's a biggie.
It is.
That's a biggie. I'm making a note of that. That's a quote. You're going to get quoted on that, mate.
Good. I mean, bring it on. It really is. And that's the problem, is one, it's down to the foundations. You already understand who your target audience is, your customers. You understand what problems they have, and it's about creating a page for that individual specific problem. Now, you might have 50 different problems, right? So you'll create 50 different pages relating to the individual problems you solve. Now, if you can target the people that's got that specific problem, send them to a page that's talking about that specific problem, rather than them having to look for a page that relates to them, then that page builds a trust up with reviews and various other things, video testimonials and stories, because stories sell. It's hard to realize, but people don't care about you as a company. They don't care about you. They care about, well, can this company solve my problem? Yes or no?
True.
Yeah.
So let's just make sure I've got that quote then. So if your website doesn't answer the customer's question, then your website is, what did you say?
I'm going to say, then your website is not doing its job.
It's not doing its job. Love it.
And if you have to sell yourself or your business or your product, then the information on the website is not doing its job.
Okay, a lot of people will be wincing as you said that.
Yeah. Why? Because for instance, say for instance, you've come to one of our opticians' websites. You've just moved to a new area. You don't know who they are. You've searched online, gone to the website. Is when you make an appointment because you trust that opticians. Why do you trust it? Because of the information put in front of you on the website. If you didn't trust it, you'd either look at a different optician, or you'd ring up and ask some questions.
Yeah.
First. Yes?
True.
So that's the sort of scenario. And the problem is a lot of websites talk about me. If all you're doing on your website is talking about me, you're never going to get that emotional connection.
Totally.
It's that's what it's about. Is that that emotional connection. And once you've got that, then that's it. It's, I mean, over the years, I've had customers I couldn't even get rid of because that emotional connection has been there. It's yeah.
Okay, I finally get the hint, Mark.
It's taken long enough.
Right. Okay. So we're getting there. You're making us squirm a bit. So, but let's take for granted then that we've got the copy on the website sorted. We've got the links on each page going from our test videos. So we're sending the right people with the right problem to the right page of the website. I'm assuming then we have a call to action that makes them engage with us in some way.
Yes. You have to obviously realize that different people like to contact you in different ways. So some people will try anything to avoid picking the phone up.
True.
Right? Because they don't want to sound stupid. That is the honest answer. The reason they don't want to pick the phone up is they don't want to sound stupid. Right? And by offering, yes, the people that do like to talk to you by phone, telephone, you've got an email address, you've got a contact form, and even now you can do video consultation in the present world. So there's different ways, but it's so important that you answer that person's query as soon as you can. Now, all it is, the call to action, unless you're an e-commerce brand and you're selling your products directly online, it's just about starting a conversation.
Right.
And once you start that conversation, it's all about making sure that that person understands you can solve their problems. Now, if you cannot solve their problems, tell them, well, unfortunately, we can't solve his problems, but this person here might be able to.
Okay.
So be honest with people, you know, and it's just about honesty, and that honesty and trust will come back to you. Because in the past, I've done this. I've said, look, to be honest with you, I could quite easily take, you know, £5,000 off you now, but it's not the right thing for you. It's not the right thing for you, and you'd be better off doing this that's going to cost £200, and you'll get more impact.
So if somebody, I'm changing slowly, but I used to be a complete technophobe, Mark. You know, you'd have winced if you'd have ever worked with me, you know, back in the day. I've only just learned how to do a spreadsheet on Excel, put it that way, right? and I honestly I was sickeningly proud of myself for like 3 hours afterwards. So for somebody like me, who is a little bit technophobic and not got a lot of money to spend, let's just say, would you suggest that they're best watching YouTube videos and trying to do it themselves, or speaking to a professional to get help?
The problem with watching YouTube videos is, how do you know as an individual that the information in that YouTube video is correct?
True.
Don't.
I see so many experts contradicting each other that, you know, we just don't know what's true now. So okay, so what would your advice be there, fella?
Yeah, I mean, does it make logical sense what they're saying? Yeah. Now, I have this scenario where is a business development mindset, right? If by doing that, does it have the potential to turn into business? And if you honestly ask yourself, I mean, by getting published in The Guardian, does it have the potential to turn into business, or is it just an ego boost? Yeah. And honestly, if you strip it right down into that question, does it have the potential to turn into new business? And when you watch it, if you're in that mindset and watching something, you'll somehow understand that what you're watching, well, no, actually, it'll get my name out there, it'll, but into the wider audience, but it won't, get to the people I want to. It's a case of, I've been a contributor on lots of websites, and I tend to avoid what everybody else does, because all it does is boost people's ego up. So I'd rather write for a local business newspaper than the national press, because it's, people tend to buy locally with stuff. And there's a connection. Yeah. So it's not the size of the audience, it's the target. And I know every time I wrote for that local newspaper, my phone rang.
So it's about there's a book by a female coach in America called Byron Katie, and she's got this fantastic coaching question, which is, you can only, well, it's a statement, which is, you can only work with what's true. And most people would say, oh, I want to be in The Guardian. Whereas actually, you know what, with what you said about what is it like, what's real, is it likely to turn into work, what you've just said makes sense. Because for many, for example, coaches and trainers, actually, yeah, people are going to want to buy local if they can, unless someone is an absolute authority on their subject, in which case global recognition means, big bucks and they'll travel. But most people want somebody on their doorstep. So yeah, I can see how being in the local rag could potentially be better off than being in The Guardian.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you're starting out, don't try and take over the world. If you cannot make it work on your local doorstep, it's never going to work on someone else's doorstep.
True enough. Right. I'm going to pick your brain now.
Okay.
Because time's marching on at a pace, and I want to make sure that we get some. I want to make you squirm a bit. I want to pick your brains, Mark.
Go on.
Because you've given us some very solid, practical, down to earth, very difficult to argue with stuff that most people watching this will be kind of familiar with, but it's good to hear it in such a solid, practical, no nonsense way from yourself. Now what I'd like from you is something that not many of us will be doing that we really should be doing, that'll make a difference to our digital marketing.
Oh, right.
I told you I'd make you squirm.
No, it's the biggest thing is nobody likes writing, right? Unless you're an author or something. Normal business owners do not like writing. You don't have to be an author to write. But if you can write a piece for your local industry magazine or local newspaper, that one thing is not going to cost you anything. It's all about getting connections, but that one piece suddenly will bring you above your competition.
Right.
If, say, for instance, I'll tell you an honest story. I was at school many years ago, and I wasn't even good enough for the bottom set of English. I was in what were called remedial English, where you put people that aren't even good at the bottom set. And that's where I was at school. Now, I have a best-selling book, because anybody can write a book. All I've done is put what's in here on paper. That's it. You are the expert in your own field. If you have nothing to write about, you need to find a different career.
True enough.
You know, is everybody as good at something, and nobody is good at everything. And it's about writing a piece, getting it published externally, not on your own website, but on an external website where people, your audience are actually reading. So it's not just on a trashy site that no one reads. Getting it published there, and then you will build your authority. So when people see that, they're going to come to you instead of doing all the research, and you're going to bypass your competition.
Okay. So I suppose it's easier for me to put it in a selfish, personal perspective here, excuse me. So for me as a speaker and a coach on the subject of goal setting and purpose, I suppose I would then need to find the websites talking about personal development, continuing professional development, coaching, learning and development.
Well, you'd think that, right?
Yeah.
Where a lot of people go wrong, because that's where all your competition are going to write stuff, right? But strip it right back. Who is your customer?
Okay. Sorry, is that a rhetorical question?
Yeah, I'm going to say, who is your customer, right? And your customer, not the audience, your customer, who the people who you connect with. So when you get booked, who is it that's actually making that booking and phoning you up? Yeah? It's people that, it's not necessarily people that's looking for goal setting, because obviously when you were presented at our event, our company event, is I've always wanted to write a book, but I've never searched how to do it because I thought it's way beyond me. And when you presented, you know, your goal settings and stripped it down so it wasn't as complicated, I mapped all that out. I followed your advice and published a book. Thanks to you.
And that's what we call a...
Yeah. So even though I'm not your customer. Your customer is the person, the company that booked you. And who is it in the company? Is it HR team? Is it, you know, who is it? So what online portals and magazines are they reading?
Right. Okay.
Then that's where is all the crowd is writing and trying to get published over here and begging and paying to get published over here. But what they're doing, they are putting their message into the end user, right? So for you, the end user is the audience. But for you specifically, who is it that's actually making the booking so you can get on that stage and present to the end audience?
So this goes back to your earlier point about creating the avatar of the customer and getting that absolutely nailed down.
Yeah, because the audience do not know their need to hear what you've got to say yet. They only know they need to hear it when you're physically on stage.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Okay. So your biggest tip to us is, if you're going to be a thought leader, as the common buzzword is, or an expert in your field, in your niche, is to get writing, get producing. I'm assuming the same applies for things like get on podcasts and YouTube and do videos and audios as well as the written word. But basically, get your message out there, but sniper rather than machine gun blunderbuss. Sniper the places where, well, a bit like we said earlier, go to where your customers are drinking.
Yes. Now, if you do that, you're not following the crowd, because I was saying, if all you do is follow the crowd, you will only ever be as good as the crowd at very most. Being as good as is just not good enough.
Is that your quote?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that, mate. I'm nicking that one as well. I will credit you. That's a cracker. If all you ever do is follow the crowd.
I mean, this is where is having a logical mindset instead of what I call a digital marketing mindset really makes a difference. Because logically, if all you're doing is following the other people, then you're never going to beat them, because all you're doing is following them. And at very most, you'll only be ever as good as them. But you don't want to be as good as them. You want to be the person in your industry, not just anybody.
Love it. Love it. Does your remit sort of stem as far as sort of the social media stuff as well, or is it mostly about website and?
No, it's anything online. So all it is, everything has to work together. So it's no good just doing one thing, because someone called me one day, said, Mark, I'm not bothered how much, just when can you start? And I said, well, why? Because everywhere I'm looking, you're there. And I want to be that person. Right?
Yeah.
So it's literally, that's who you want to be. You don't have to spend a fortune to do that. So if your audience do not use Twitter, then don't bother messing with Twitter. If your audience use Facebook, get on Facebook. If it's B2B, make sure you're on LinkedIn. Be where your audience is, but don't just spend all your marketing budget on one individual channel. Split it up so wherever they're looking, you're there.
Okay. And I want to do 4 interviews with you, because I could just ask questions all day long. Because normally my interviews, I'm asking loads and loads of questions. I'm just sitting here. I'm making notes as if I'm a delegate in your workshop. I mean, that is a true compliment to you, Mark.
Well, it's all right. I'll send you my invoice after.
I'm sure you will, brother. I'm sure you will. And I'd pay it. So my last question for now, shall we say? My last question for now is, the world's been turned on its head. I'm not going to use the new normal as an expression, but it really has turned on its head. Where do you think we're going to be in a digital marketing sense over the next 1, 5, and 10 years? How do you think it's going to change?
Right. Is moving forward, I think the current situation we've all just been through has accelerated things. Is even people that's never used an iPad are on the iPads because they've been forced into it.
Yeah. Is
online shopping for groceries is, I think I read this morning, increased 112%. Is things have accelerated, and we will never get back to normality like it was, because businesses realise, well, I don't actually need an office, or they've realised, well, we can split it up. Things will never be the same as it was, and digital marketing has sort of sped up that process, because they've had the situations force people into it. And I mean, going 1, 5, 10 years time it's a case of the systems will change. We'll probably have new social media. We'll have that, but the crux of it won't change. It's just that people are using different systems to do different things.
True. Do you think, I mean, I'm really happy for you to sort of wee all over my chips, for want of a better metaphor, but I'm seeing that we're actually very quickly going away from a lot of the spin and manipulation and the shouting that you were talking about earlier. And we are going back to a more relationship transaction based sort of sales and marketing model. You know, we're literally going back to the days of Dale Carnegie, about it's all about selling a story rather than lots of content, tons of videos. And, I'm seeing that changing for me. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, people don't want to be shouted at anymore. And all it is, if all you're doing is pumping content out, you're shouting at people, is even stripping the content right back, so you're only sharing things once a week or once a month is better, that as long as you have a key message to talk about. And it's not about shouting. I mean, the thing is, as we move forward at the moment, is companies are still in that status. So they still think they can do what worked before, but they can't. And this is where people that actually knuckle down and strip things and analyse things, look at their audience, look at how their customer base have changed. You know, do you need to create an online portal for your customers? Can you create an area on your website where your customers can talk to each other if that's what you want? You know, so you need to be digitally more savvy and change with the times. And if you don't change with the times, you'll be left behind. And by the time you realise, it'd be too late.
Wow. So what, excuse my crudeness, but what I'm hearing is nut up or shut up. It's time to go, Rhino. It's time to stop tiptoeing, and actually it's time to dive in, write lots of content, build trust, engage your marketplace, make sure your website answers your customers' questions and problems, otherwise it's meaningless. And I love that last quote you gave, which is, if all you ever do is follow the crowd, you will only ever be as good as the crowd at best. Mark, is there one final thing you'd like to leave us with?
Yes. Now, people are not as, not professional, but audiences now, with the current situation we've just been in, they want more personality. You know, be honest with them. You know, it's like there's so many interviews and so many things now with the kids kicking off in the background, and it's just acceptable. Just be you, because that is what will sell your brand.
Great advice from a great guy working for a great company, doing great work. Mark, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
It's been a total pleasure.
Have you by any chance got a copy of your book, Andy, that you can wave in front of the camera so that people can go to Amazon?
No.
And it is a cracking.
Oh, that's your book, sorry.
There we go. The Business Side of SEO by Mark Preston, available on Amazon now.
It is.
Cracking. If anybody wants to get hold of you, would you rather not be got hold of, or how can they? Have you got a website?
No, they can just search me on Twitter at Mark Preston 1969, giving me age away, and or on LinkedIn, Mark Preston. I'm easy to find.
You've depressed me now. That means I'm older than you. Mate, thank you very much indeed for your time. Have a cracking rest of your day. And thank you for this wonderful information you've shared. The biggest compliment anybody watching this or listening to this can give to Mark, the biggest compliment we can pay him, is do something. Take some action, feed back to him what you've done and what's happened as a result of it, and let him bask in the glow. of your glory. Mark, cheers, buddy. Have a cracking rest of your day, and we'll catch up again very, very soon.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Then click the TV to watch the next video. Oh, and don't forget to visit our website at davidhyner.com to claim your free audiobook. Until the next time, go Rhino. Have in it.